Welcome to Uncaged, a show that celebrates thought leadership from today's top business leaders. The program provides a voice to amazing executives from around the globe who are shaping the world of business today and mapping the path to the commerce of tomorrow. Today, we're dipping into the world of Web3 with Sebastian Banescu. Hey, how are you?
Hey, I'm doing great. How are you?
Excellent, excellent. Well, Sebastian, or should I call you Sebi? Sebi is the CEO of a very interesting company. It's called Chainproof. And Chainproof is a company that is really trying to look at the lovely space of smart contracts from an insurance perspective. It's a company whose main goal is to cover against principal loss by providing best-in-class insurance for non-custodial smart contracts that is fully regulated and compliant. We'll be tweezing through all of those topics and how they relate to the lovely world of blockchain and Web3. But before we get there, Sebi, tell me a little bit about yourself and your career.
Yeah, totally. So I guess my love for computers and networks started back in in the 90s, when I first discovered Microsoft Paint. So I don't know, I was visiting a friend and he had a computer, and that was a big deal. Like not a lot of people had computers back then. And he said, like, let me show you this thing. This is awesome. And he showed me MS Paint, how he drew like ovals and rectangles and all, and then filled them with a click, and I was hooked. I was like, I need a computer.
It's so funny how we all remember those like little moments, right? And I remember when I was in grad school and I was in the computer lab of my college, and I looked over to the person next to me, and they were, on some website called Mosaic, if you remember Mosaic, right? Early browser. And I was like, what the hell is that? And they explained it to me. And once I learned about it, I was hooked. After that, I was a horrible student. All I wanted to do was learn about what was happening with this new idea of an internet. So there you go. So so tell me a little bit more about what you've been working on.
Yeah, so just to continue a bit, after I finished high school, I decided I wanted to do computers, right? So I went to do my bachelor's in computer science and engineering. And during that period, I learned a lot of stuff about hardware, software. And one of the things that really interested me was security. So I was studying back home in Romania. And I said, I want to see how studying abroad is, So I went for one short summer break abroad, and it was really good. I said, okay, I want to do my master's abroad, right? But that was easier said than done, because studying abroad is super expensive. So started applying for a bunch of scholarships. I was lucky enough to get one in security in the Netherlands. And fast forward, I moved there, did my master's, and started working right after in one of these big enterprises called Philips. I quickly realized, okay, things are actually moving a bit slow here. So let me do my PhD, because I really liked academia at some point, right? And I did this crazy thing where I thought, okay, I'm young, I want to travel. Let's move to another country, at this time Germany, and do my PhD. So that was something that I it was much easier said than done. But once I finished, I had still not learned my lesson that enterprises are not for me. And I went to BMW. So it was sort of like a dream of everyone living in Munich, oh, you should work at BMW. So I said, let's give it a try. Again, same problem as before. Things were moving way too slow for me. So I was lucky enough to get contacted by Quantstamp, who is the mother company of Chainproof. And yeah, one of the founders contacted me and we started talking back in 2017. And at that point in time, remote work was not something that anyone would do easily, you know?
Right.
But I wanted to do it, you know, and I was discussing with them and we sort of figured it out. So in 2018, I started working for Quantstamp remotely, you know,
Wow.
like before the pandemic, right? Yeah, before the pandemic, working remotely for a crypto startup, leaving a secure enterprise job and joining a crypto startup in a bear market. So everyone just called me crazy, like really,
Yeah.
like people were just like, oh my god. And people were telling me like, you can come back to BMW, like once you figure out like the startup thing, you can come
Yeah.
back, no problem.
Yeah, no, I
So
mean, that
yeah,
sounds, how should I say, the type of thing I've heard many, many times in Germany, where they're like, oh, Sebi's going to go try this crazy thing. We'll see how it goes. But it
yeah,
sounds like it actually works. You stayed there for a while and now you're launching
yeah,
Chainproof.
yeah.
Tell me about Quantstamp and the relationship to the launch of Chainproof.
Totally. So yeah, joining Quantstamp was definitely the best decision that I've ever made career-wise. Um, it started like Chainproof actually started from the moment I joined. Like the point where I joined, they told me like you're gonna figure out this insurance thing in Web3. You know, it was like okay, I have absolutely no idea about insurance. You know, but like yeah, why not? It sounds really challenging, so why not? So we started building. So I joined Quantstamp as a Solidity developer and started building smart contracts that would enable peer-to-peer insurance on the blockchain for smart contract security risks. And we built that and we were ready to launch it. And our legal counsel told us like, don't launch it. You don't have an insurance license. You don't want to upset regulators, you know?
Right.
So we didn't launch it. But then we said like, hey, let's start reaching out to insurance companies. This was already 2019. We started reaching out to insurance companies, asking them, like telling them like, hey, have you heard about DeFi? It's this next big thing. Right now it has under $1 billion in total value locked. Like at that point in time, it was under $1 billion total value locked.
Right.
But we know it's going to grow and it's going to grow a lot and just trust us, you know, and insurance companies were laughing their ass off saying like, okay, yeah, leave me alone.
Right.
You know, like I think at that point in time, insurance companies were really stuck on just using blockchain as a way to automate things in their processes, you know,
Right.
like claims or whatever, and they didn't want to hear about insuring anything in the space, you know. So like we did that for quite a while. Like we talked to so many insurance companies and reinsurance companies from 2019 to 2021, and we noticed that it's not going anywhere. So they were not willing to put capacity behind this, and we said like, okay, let's just do it ourselves. So we were lucky enough that on this journey we actually met people at one insurance company called Sampo, which is Japan's second largest insurer, who believed in us, right? They believed in us. They said like, hey, we trust these guys. They seem to know what they're talking about. And they invested in us, right? And at the same time, we also were talking to people at Munich Re, which is the world's largest reinsurer. And they also like believed in us and thought like, okay, if you guys get the license, we're going to reinsure you, right? So we really got down and dug into the whole insurance application thing, and we applied for a license in Bermuda. So we shopped around in many different jurisdictions, looking for the right place to open this. And due to their really progressive legislation in Bermuda, they have this digital asset business law which really is, I would say, pro digital assets. So we said, okay, this regulator seems like they know what they're talking about. And we opened up shop there. We worked a lot on the application. And finally, this year in May, we received our insurance license. So
Wow.
that's pretty quite the story, I would say.
Well, I mean, I love that you're doing this. This idea of creating insurance for smart contracts, is this part of a broader trend that we're seeing in kind of the blockchain and Web3 space?
Totally. Yeah, it's a huge business. We actually have seen a lot of unregulated solutions popping up.
Mm-hmm.
Like soon after we were done implementing our first product that we wanted to launch, something called Nexus Mutual launched back in 2019, I think. And at the time when it started, it didn't really have so many customers, but now, as the market leader, I think it has quite a few, a decent amount of total value locked. Wow. And along with it, we've seen, I think, somewhere over 20 competitors, unregulated competitors popping up over the years. So I can name names, but definitely.
Well, I mean, it's interesting. I know that in the broader insurance space, one of the things that we often talk about is regulatory practices. And, tell me a little bit of the differences between being regulated and being unregulated. What does that actually mean?
So I think with regulated insurance, the customer has a guarantee that we're not just going to disappear off the face of the earth, and we're accountable, right?
Right.
We're accountable, and we're not doing things on our own terms. We're doing things on the regulator's terms, right? Mm-hmm. So there's someone out there holding us accountable for the stuff that we're doing, and not just letting us do whatever we want. I think that's the most important thing. And then another thing which comes with this is the fact that we're basically not allowed to take crazy risks in terms of things that we're insuring, right? We're really supposed to be pricing things very, very decently and not mm-hmm. Ripping our customers off. And I think another thing which is really important for institutions is that all of our customers and all of our funds need to be KYC'd, right? Like all of the customers and this is also important for our reinsurer and insurer partners. They cannot do any business with these unregulated insurance or decentralized insurance solutions, because anyone can pull money there, right? Like terrorists, oligarchs, you name it, right? Anyone can just pool their money, and that would mean that maybe these companies are somehow doing business together with these people who they're not supposed to be doing business with, right? So that's sort of like a showstopper for big insurance and reinsurance companies,
Yeah, no, I mean, Sebi, I find the space and the changes so amazing. And, over the last couple of years, we've been obviously living through difficult times with the pandemic, but in the Web3 space, it's been a crazy roller coaster ride, right? We've seen cryptocurrencies reach new heights and then crash back down and, move all over the place. So we've seen tremendous development in the utilization of blockchain in general. I mean, where are we right now? What does the space look like?
Yeah, actually, what's happened, I would say, over the course of the pandemic is something that has happened a few times before in this space, but at a lower magnitude. I think the first bull run and bear markets were somewhere around 2013, right? And then there was another one, 2017, and then bear market started 2018, right? And I think during the pandemic, what we saw was that many people were just stuck at home. They had extra cash lying around. And this space seemed to be very attractive especially for those kind of people, right? And then we saw a lot of retail coming in. Unfortunately, there were some events that led to sort of a crash right now. But I'm very, very confident that this is temporary. And I think like there's always this kind of like campaigns going around. One is like in the bear market, there's a lot of FUD, right? So fear, uncertainty, and doubt that is being pushed over all news outlets, right? Like, and not just news outlets, also social media and so on. Like everyone is like, oh, yeah, this is not good and it's going to go away and so on. And I think like they're not seeing that this is not just like a sentiment thing. There are people behind, like developers behind these projects, which are building regardless of the market situation, right? And very, very soon, like I think even before this episode gets published, we're going to have the Ethereum proof of stake merge, right? Where the consensus protocol of Ethereum basically goes from proof of work, which is not environmentally friendly, to proof of stake, which is not only environmentally friendly, but also gives Ethereum so many other benefits, right? Like Ether is going to be deflationary, so there's going to be way less ETH, and also it enables, like to some extent, some things that will allow it to scale, right? We're seeing a lot of like layer 2 solutions come, and I think like what I've seen, at least like the core developers of this blockchain have a very good roadmap of scaling. So I do strongly believe that in a few years, we're going to see capabilities of blockchains that exceed current financial, like fintech systems, right? Like everyone's comparing blockchain to number of transactions that Visa or MasterCard do, right? I think we're going to get there. We're going to get there in a few years. So that's going to be exciting times.
That is exciting. And clearly that's kind of where you guys can play a role with the smart contracts. Tell me a little bit, Sebi, just so the audience can understand, how would your company specifically get involved with a player in this space? Who are your customers?
Yeah. So this sort of not spin-off. Well, you could call it somehow a spin-off, or like an incubated company, right? Which is Chainproof out of Quantstamp. Basically, the customers of Chainproof would be customers of Quantstamp. And to sort of fully answer your question, the customer of Quantstamp are basically all of these crypto startups that want to launch, but they don't want to do it like YOLO. They want to have they want to have a third-party check for bugs in their code, right?
Right.
And it's become sort of like a community accepted thing that before you launch, you should have an audit, at least one audit, right? Because we've seen so many projects which were not audited that got hacked. And yeah, it's just, I think it's very commonly accepted. So we are not, like, customers come to us a lot, you know, like it's not that we need to run after so many customers. It's basically like at some point during the bull market, we actually needed to select our customers because there were so many coming to ask for an audit. So basically, you have all of these projects which want to launch. They generally wait until very late to ask for an audit, and then they're in a rush to launch. So many of these projects, they're actually risky. And we can talk about these kind of things that, well, even if someone has an audit, it doesn't mean that they're secure, because auditors cannot block them from deploying something that has not been fixed, right? So auditors can find bugs, but they're not able to fix the bugs for the developers. The developers need to do that themselves and then launch. So Chainproof basically is not going to be insuring all of the customers of Quantstamp, but only a select few, which actually go the extra mile and fix everything, and they're like basically bulletproof, you know?
Right. And those customers would be in a variety of different business verticals?
Yeah, I think like our main focus for the past few years have been what you've seen mainly in the market, right? So in 2020 we had DeFi summer, right?
Mm-hmm.
Which yeah, resulted in so much demand for DeFi audits.
Mm-hmm.
Last year, 2021, we saw starting in summer, I think like spring, summer, we saw a lot of NFT projects. So we had like
I was going to ask
over,
you about that. I'm based in Miami,
yeah,
so I figured that maybe you might have a lot of NFT projects going.
yeah, we definitely had a ton of audits in that space as well. And that allowed us to see some kind of similarities, right, between things like DeFi and NFTs. Like both of them are smart contracts, so like there's definitely going to be similarities. And I think before DeFi summer, we actually had like a very wide range of even non-crypto native companies. Like some of our customers include also Siemens, which is this like super large German conglomerate, right, with 400,000 employees.
Mm-hmm.
They were like doing stuff with blockchain and needed some kind of security services.
Mm-hmm.
Toyota was doing something with mobility, right? And we basically helped them there. Mitsubishi, the government of Dubai, right? We work with them as well to implement a blockchain-based solution there. And also we work with the World Economic Forum on stuff like CDBC, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So like we really had a wide range. I think like before DeFi summer, afterwards really concentrated into this kind of like financial focus, you know. But yeah, we can cover any type of vertical.
That's great. And what's the commercial relationship? How do you guys charge for what you do?
So for Chainproof, we basically charge a premium like an insurance company would do, right? So someone comes to us and say, we want, I don't know, $10 million in coverage for a deposit that we're going to make in DeFi protocol, let's say Curve Finance, okay? And based on the protocol, based on the limit, and also the customer's sort of parameters, we come up with a premium for a given period, right? And we say like, okay, we can offer you a premium for even like, we can go as low as a monthly premium, quarterly, or yearly, right? And depending on the length, of course, you get like a lower rate if you go for a longer period, right? And that's basically how Chainproof works. It's really simple. And for Quantstamp, it's basically like depending on the size of the audit, lines of code and complexity of code and documentation and so on, we give them a quote as to how much effort is needed there, and that's it. Also pretty simple.
Yeah, no, it's so critical, so needed for what we see in the marketplace. I mean, we've seen all these changes happen over the last couple of years, but certainly, Sebi, and we find ourselves in another big year of change. If you were to think forward in the future, what do you see on the horizon for this space? Is it going to kind of level out in some way? Are we going to start to see any kind of smoothness in the waters, or is it going to continue to fluctuate?
I think it's going to become more smooth, indeed, at some point. I think like until now, we always have like a very large wave of speculators that create this kind of FOMO and just get people on board without actually telling them like what this thing can do. It's more like of a short-term investment or something. And then these people leave, and when they leave, it goes down, the market goes down. But I think people and institutions have started looking at the space. And once they enter, and once crypto is going to be accepted as a means of payment, or it's going to have like very clear in real life use, you know, like, okay, if you have an NFT, you can get some kind of benefits. You can get into a club, you can get into a cinema, you can do something, right? At those point, in those moments, you will see people not just dumping anymore, right? once these kind of things have utility in the real world, they're not going to be dumped like we've seen in the past, right? Someone is going to buy them and use them, right? Like there's always going to be people who want to do something with something that is provided by these things, like get exclusive access to something or buy something, who knows. I think that maybe, hopefully, the next wave, the next bull market is actually going to be the one where there's not going to be a spectacular fall again. Like I think, yeah, I'm not sure which wave this would be, but like I'm hoping that the community has matured enough and we have like protocols that are working and institutions that are integrating this. So we're getting there for sure.
Yeah. So Sebi, I just want to make sure I understand it fully. So basically the way you guys would work is, first thing would happen is anybody that had any type of a project, you would do an audit of that project.
Yep.
Essentially.
Indeed.
And then from that audit, you would then be able to assess what the level of insurance was needed and whether it was insurable, full stop.
Indeed.
Yeah. And then you would move forward from there. And these companies that you mentioned, the group in Japan and the group in Germany, are both essentially supporters or backers of that solution ultimately?
Yes.
That's an amazing solution. I mean, I think it's such a valuable step forward just to know that products like Chainproof are in the marketplace. And it really does kind of speak to the continued evolution of everything really that is blockchain based and very distributed in nature. Certainly a lot of verticals can be impacted from this. Sebi, if somebody wanted to learn more about what you and the Chainproof team were doing, where's the best place to find you?
Best place to find us is on Twitter, I would say. So there's both my handle, personal handle, the Chainproof handle, and the Quantstamp handle. I think like all of those provide really good sources of information.
Excellent. Well, we have been speaking with Sebi Banescu. He is the CEO of Chainproof, which is a company whose main goal is to cover against principal loss by providing the best-in-class insurance for non-custodial smart contracts that is fully regulated and compliant. There are unregulated solutions out in the marketplace, but these guys have, over the last several years, put together a regulated, compliant solution, really for the fast-growing space of Web3. So imagine a world where things like cryptocurrencies are like the start of something that's going to evolve into a truly distributed economy. And really, insurance is critical for this thing to work properly and scale. Sebi, thank you so much for being on the show today, and we look forward to having you back in the future.
Thank you so much, Ben.
Cheers.
It was awesome. Cheers. Have a great one.